I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strasser with the Lansing Lugnuts, and we begin this week with Class AA and the New Hampshire Fisher Cats and Bob Lipman. Bob, how are you?
I'm well. I'm not your prototypical leadoff hitter, a little slow, but got me hitting leadoff tonight, so let's go.
Here's why. Great on base percentage is what I'm thinking.
I have a good eye. There you go.
Well, Bob, you joined us. The New Hampshire Fisher Cats, they finished things off 4-game series against the Reading Fightin' Phils. Let's go back through this week, though, stretching back to last Friday. What was your baseball highlight of these past 7 days?
Jorge Flores hitting home runs on 2 consecutive days. Ryan Schimpf going long. We had a gem that was spun by the veteran Austin Bibbins-Dirks, who went 7 innings the other day against the Erie Seawolves with 7 strikeouts and wasn't even relying on a fastball. So those were some of the highlights of a pretty disappointing week for the Fisher Cats. We dropped 2 out of 3 to the Erie Seawolves, the club with the worst record in the Western Division. Dropped 3 to the first-place Reading Fightin' Phils before losing our game last night. It winds up being canceled. It was the final scheduled game of the year. So big stretch coming up now. We're scheduled to play opener of a 4-game series with second-place Binghamton. We have 8 games with Binghamton, 4 this weekend, 4 next weekend. And I think the way you kind of have to look at it now is you have to set the bar very high. Probably need 6 out of the 8 if you want to think about playoff possibilities with 20 games to go.
What's the mindset of the Fisher Cats right now?
Right now, it's just trying to get everything squared away. It's been really frustrating. We played some of the hottest teams in the league here over the last stretch, and by that, Reading and the Phillies AA and the Blue Bay Sox, the Orioles AA, have just emerged as the 2 teams here. The Fisher Cats have had a lot of games since the beginning of August with those teams, and been some frustrating losses. One that got away the other night in Reading that Fisher Cats rarely let games get away. They have a 4-run lead in, and it's just a matter of getting home and I think just relaxing now and starting to get back to what we do pretty well. It's been a pretty good hitting club, but not here in August.
I'm looking at the Fisher Cats home road splits, the 37-26 home record compared to 22-35 on the road. Yes, it is good to be back home. Let's take some of those baseball highlights in turn that you went over to start things off. Let's begin with Jorge Flores. I don't believe he had homered in 2 years before homering in back-to-back days.
Yeah, I believe you probably saw the last home run. It was in Dayton, June 23rd of 2013. 605 at-bats with the Fisher Cats without hitting a home run. And let me tell you, he broke it in grand style because I estimated that his home run went about 375 feet, which for Jorge is pretty good. It would have been a home run everywhere in the league, except maybe off of that big monster wall in Portland. And then he comes back the next night, and he homers again 5 at-bats later. So go figure that. So he's at the power surge this week. And speaking of the power numbers, Ryan Schimpf just continues to light it up, and he had a couple of them in the Reading series recently. Just tied a Fisher Cat record by homering in 4 straight games. Missed one Tuesday night, came back and hit one on Wednesday night. And our all-time leading home run hitter in Fisher Cats history, I think, is poised for a pretty good run here at the end of the year.
You mentioned that Erie series was disappointing. Not for Schimpf. 2 hits in every single day in the series, a home run in every single game of the series. He kept up the power surge against Reading. He now leads the Eastern League in home runs.
Yeah, moved into first place in the Eastern League, and I think that the really significant part about it, Jesse, is you have to remember he spent a lot of time at AAA this year. So Schimpf has 18 home runs in 231 at-bats. In second place is Josh Rodriguez of Binghamton. Now, he's been a veteran guy in the Eastern League and a pretty significant hitter. He has 17 home runs, and Rodriguez has about 150 more at-bats, 370 on the season. So Schimpf is hitting home runs at a pace that we have never seen in New Hampshire history.
I know he stands 5'9". I stood next to him here in Lansing. And the fact that he's been able to hit for the sort of power that he does, I guess the next step for him next year is seeing how this can all translate at the AAA level, what he's doing in AA. What breakthroughs has he made? Is there anything that he's learned this year? Is there any specific way that he has grown as an offensive player?
I think he's been pretty solid. His batting average is up this year. He's always had a really good eye. 33 walks, 49 strikeouts for a power hitter is terrific. 945 OPS. What worries me about Ryan Schimpf and the development, I'm sure it worries Ryan, is where does he play? An infielder by nature, he's not a terrific third baseman. That's probably his best position. He's kind of a fill-in guy in the outfield. It's really, where is Ryan Schimpf going to find that spot? I guess with these kind of offensive numbers, you can work him in as a first baseman DH, but I don't think we've ever played him in.
From Schimpf and those batters, you talked about Austin Bivens-Dirks, and I'm looking at his line. It was back 5 days ago against the Erie Seawolves. It was 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 run. He struck out 7. He's been piling up the strikeouts. He does not walk too many batters. And as you said, it's not overwhelming heat.
Well, it used to be, when he came through, I think it was the Mariners organization early on, he used to throw high 90s. And I think the reason why they like having him in the organization here is he knows how to pitch. He told me he threw 30 fastballs out of the 94 pitches against Erie the other day, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. Most pitchers certainly go at least half of their pitches, if not more. But he said, why should I throw it? They weren't hitting my other stuff. So he kept giving it a heavy dose of the sidearm, the cutter away, or the curveball. And he knows how to pitch. And when he's on, it's a lot of fun to watch. He winds up every now and then with a couple of those rough innings, and he just can't seem to get himself on track. That'll include maybe an error, a double, a home run, and then a walk, and then another double, and he can get himself down in ball games. But he's fun to have around.
Let me check in really quick with Connor Green before getting to our Around the Nest question of the week. Second start in New Hampshire, not as good as the first start. Was there something that got him into trouble?
Yeah, the middle of the Reading Phillies lineup. When I tell you that I have never seen a group that is as hot as these guys are right now, and the answer to your trivia question is going to come right out of Reading today. But a couple of two-out base runners, and Connor Green walked maybe a few guys that he shouldn't have walked because it led to the wrong guy coming up in the situation. And Andrew Knapp, who's the guy we're going to talk about, beat him for a 3-run homer in the 5th inning the other night. And, that's not going to happen to a young pitcher in terms of his development. But I'm not worried about Connor Green at all. I thought he showed a lot of composure, and with guys on base, threw the fastball in some key spots and got swinging strikeouts.
Here we go. Around the Nest question of the week. I'm teeing you up, and I know what you're going to say. Who has impressed you in the Eastern League?
Well, this guy, Andrew Knapp, I've now seen twice this month. I don't think he's come through your league, but being as part of the Phillies organization, he's now played 40-plus games for the Reading Phils. He is a catcher out of Cal Berkeley and was a second-round draft pick in 2013. 155 at-bats now at AA. He's hitting .406. Has 45 runs batted in those 40 games. He is as prolific an offensive player as we've seen all year. He's got a pretty good eye. And by the way, he's a pretty solid catcher. I think talk about guys who I've been most impressed with this year. This is a guy who's going to be catching in the major leagues pretty soon. And if Ruiz isn't around too much longer in Philadelphia, he may very well step into that role soon.
Well, a big stretch for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats back home to take on Binghamton. They play the B-Mets tonight at 7:05 p.m. and then a doubleheader tomorrow before wrapping things up at 1:35 p.m. on Sunday. Tune in to Bob Lipman and the Fisher Cats for the call, nhfishercats.com. Bob, thank you very much for your time.
Have a great weekend, Jesse. Thanks for having me on again.
All right. From Double-A, let's go up the ladder to Triple-A and Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons. Ben, what was your baseball highlight of this past week?
Wow, the past week?
So since last we talked, last Friday was
the highlight. Yeah, the highlight, or I guess the roster reshuffle. I think one of the highlights you have to look at immediately is Matt Hague going to the big leagues and getting that opportunity. Somewhat, I still think it's a surprise, the timing of it, the fact that he had been not exactly rumored to be called up all season long while hitting .350. And to be honest, he's maybe not even hitting the best that he has hit at this point in the season as he had in previous opportunities or previous situations. So maybe that's probably the surprise or the highlight of the week. Maybe the biggest surprise as well was shortly after the John Heyman article comes out about Randy Wolf, and then we talk about it one-on-one with him, and then yesterday he gets traded. That's probably the biggest shock of the week. So both ends of the spectrum, one good for a guy in both situations, great for another guy getting an opportunity to be back at the major league level, but both, I think, devastating from a Buffalo perspective in terms of what it did to a lineup and also then what it does to a hole, another significant hole in the Bison's rotation.
Let's start with Matt VP. What was the reaction to the team when everybody learned that Matt Hague was moving up?
Oh, he's such an awesome dude. Everybody was happy for him. I think across the board, he'd put together just this incredible body of work, and deservedly so. It was, always rumored if there was going to be a need, but yet was on the periphery just because Matt never made it a big thing to talk about that or talk about it with us or anybody else. So while he was on the 40-man roster, you never know. I mean, Josh Donaldson is playing lights out. Edwin Encarnacion, Justin Smoke, they've been options for John Givens all season long. Where's he going to play? He's never really played the outfield, so you don't see him going in. So the timing was just something that even when Edwin was dealing with that jammed finger that kept him out of the lineup 3 or 4 days, and he was adamant saying he's not going to go on the DL. So you just kind of removed Matt Hague from the equation as a potential call-up. You thought maybe an outfielder. Well, Ezekiel Carrera needed to be added to the 40-man. Was it going to be Dalton Pompey? So there again, you're going over the options, and you're thinking that, well, man, maybe he's probably like 3 or 4 down the line. But then when rumors started to circulate that it was going to be him, people were really excited for him, the opportunity, and because he's being rewarded for putting together a tremendous season.
And now to Randy Wolf. A question from Dom Dakers, the heart of Bluebird Banter, saying, what was it like having Randy Wolf on the Bisons this year?
I thought it was awesome. He was one of the best veteran presence in terms of the clubhouse, but also then what he was able to do in the clubhouse with guys and some of the young guys that had been in and out, but also just, the ribbing of the old guys and just, keeping it very, very light. Let's put it that way. He kept himself and the clubhouse very, very light in the overall situation, but also then to translate that into success. You can be a wild card, but if you're 1 in 10 or 2 for 50 at the plate, it's really hard to joke around with guys, because they just don't want to hear it. But it's a great question. It's a great question, and one that I get frequently. But I haven't really had anybody that was as open or trusting in his own ability, let alone, the own situation, and as an open book that you could cover a number of different topics with Randy that you usually can't with a number of guys because of his experience and how much he brings to the table. But also the fact, his season was much different than the last couple. So you could also ask him from a competitive standpoint, what have been the biggest differences for him? And as the body of work has gone on, it's really good. I mean, it's what he was able to do and what I've learned from him. I mean, it was a tremendous, 4.5 months, that we got to know him.
Another question from Tom. Which other Bisons are you expecting the Blue Jays to bring up when the rosters expand in September?
Which other Bison? That is a $1 million question right now because of where the Blue Jays are. If I had the answer, man, I would sell it. And that's a really good question that I posed to Ryan Tapera earlier for our pregame show. and he's not even sure. And here's a guy that logged, 24 whatever innings and in some high leverage situations as well as the Blue Jays bullpen. He's been throwing really, really well right here. He feels like he could be an option. Of course, I think he's an option with what he could have been put there. But how many bodies do you want around a clubhouse that has great chemistry right now and is performing and positioning themselves to make not only a run through September, but a significant opportunity to make a run through the playoffs as well? How much do you want to have guys tripping over guys and guys getting to know other guys? Sometimes that's going to work, but in short order, I think the automatic go-tos, guys like Dalton Pompey, go up. You're going to probably add Josh Toy, backup catcher. Those are historic call-ups, always bolstering. I think Andy Burns is there, that's somebody's name that I've heard floated around. Do you bring up Munenori Kawasaki for just some late innings off and give an opportunity to Ryan Goins if it's a done deal one way or the other for the Blue Jays or their opponent, just to get them off their legs, try to keep the legs fresh if there's a situation. On top of Ryan Tepera, I think Steve Delabar, Aaron Loup are automatic options. Scott Copeland, if they want to bring up a long guy as well, I think he's there. Depending on what they like from Chad Jenkins, if they think he's got an out pitch. So what's the list up to now? Almost 10 names. So there you go. Now it's a 25-man roster. You've got almost 35 bodies, floating around the clubhouse. So is that too much? That's really the answer that I'm trying to find, just for my own knowledge, to see how deep the organization wants to go, or even does it extend beyond the Bisons? And I was actually asked this question last night. Does it extend the Bisons and you get a speedster like Roman Fields coming back up? Does he make the jump immediately when the rosters expand and they've got room for him on the 40-man? Does he just go from Double-A to the big leagues? And he gets a feel. They love his instincts when he's on the base pad. Or do you try to get him another week or so at Triple-A Life before they make that decision? So there's a million question marks out there right now, and the only guy that really knows what cards he wants to play is Alex Anthopoulos, as always.
I feel like you just took me on a tour around the Buffalo Bison's clubhouse, and we're looking at guy after guy after guy, figuring out what could be in the future for anybody. Because, yes, there are those question marks floating around all over the place. Around the next question of the week.
Yeah.
Yes. Leaving our clubhouse, leaving Buffalo, and looking around the rest of the International League, who's a player or players who've really stood out to you from another club?
Early in the season, I thought Gregory Polanco was unbelievable. And in Indianapolis, before he got called up, he was with the Indians, and we saw him in short order where two of the series were played in relatively close fashion. So that's the luxury. It was also the obstacle offensively, trying to figure out how to keep him off the base pads. And he was probably the earliest best talent that I saw. We saw Francisco Lindor for a brief time with the Columbus Clippers earlier in the season when we were actually in Columbus, but then he got promoted shortly after. And then just recently, Byron Buxton with the Minnesota Twins. Just awesome. I was really disappointed when he got promoted from Chattanooga and went straight to Minnesota. But then he had the injury, so he started his rehab and then was optioned back. But when Aaron Hicks fell on the disabled list shortly after the Bisons got swept in Rochester, he was the immediate call, and that was no surprise. He was dominant at the plate. Great approach, and probably the most well-rounded, even beyond Lindor and Polanco, from a player perspective, well-roundedness that we saw in this league. And two or three now can't miss prospects that we really had the treat of seeing in the International League with Lindor, Polanco, and now Buxton.
The two most impressive home runs I've seen recently in the Midwest League, Trey Turner taking Miguel Castro deep, and Byron Buxton against Roberto Osuna, where Osuna threw it in at 97, and I have no clue where the baseball landed. So, yes, I can imagine.
Yeah, that's because of the approach, right, of Buxton. I mean, it's so smooth. That guy has a plan at the plate. And you mentioned Trey Turner. Trey was just with the Syracuse club that arrives today to open up a short 3-game series here in Buffalo. And we saw some of the best of Trey Turner, and we also saw some of the worst defensively of Trey Turner. And I know they shifted him after Buffalo's last series in Syracuse to play more frequently at second base just to get him a little bit more exposure over there. But I don't know. While his bat, and at a young age, he's proven to hit everywhere that he's been, he's very shaky defensively. So it was somewhat of a surprise to see the Nationals call him up today. But obviously, they know exactly what they've got in terms of talent and where he's at, and I think a lot of confidence will just help him a long, long, long way. But Trey Turner's also a very young and really touted prospect, that they acquired from the Padres and now in the Nationals with just a short time playing with Syracuse.
Ben Wagner and the Buffalo Bisons, they're home this weekend against Syracuse. Ben, zombie night tonight. The Buffalo Bisons not dead yet, but there might be quite a few walking around.
That's a great way to put it. Mathematically, of course, there's still a heartbeat. Yes, 100%, 6.5 back now in the division. But zombies, the chains, the wheezing, the hissing, all sights and sounds in full effect today. And then you shift gears on Saturday with Blue Cheese, and then the total extreme that you can get away from a zombie night will be Pirates and Princess Day on Sunday. There, my friend, is the weekend at Coca-Cola Field. Right, exactly.
Go to Bisons.com. Tune in to Ben Wagner on the call and find him on Twitter at BenWag247. Ben, thank you for your time.
Awesome, Jesse. Talk to you next week.
From Ben Wagner and AAA, now down to Marshall Kellner and the A-Advanced Dunedin Blue Jays. Marshall, what was your baseball highlight this past week?
Jesse, it had to be last Sunday against Clearwater, one of the best teams in the league. We ended up losing the final 3 games of the series, but the first game was very good in Clearwater, which is about 10 minutes from Dunedin, if you guys aren't familiar. And the DJs had a 7-run third inning, matching their highest total in an inning this season. And Shane Dawson had his best outing of his 3 with the DJs so far, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, and he was very reminiscent of Mark Burley, and I've mentioned those comparisons before. Those comparisons really showed themselves the most in that outing for Shane. He didn't walk anybody for the first time after he walked 3 in his first couple outings, and once he got the big lead, he just came right after a very talented Clearwater lineup, which is maybe the best in the league right now, and it was quite impressive to watch. One of the only explosions for this DJ's offense that has really struggled hitting the ball in August.
What's going on with Dunedin's offense? Who's right now? Who's trying to carry the load?
Well, Anthony Alford, and he'll miss a second straight game today, but he's not on the disabled list. But he continues to reach base. Still, I think the last time we talked, he had not reached base in 7 games all year. That number is still the same. He had a couple of 3-hit games in a row to lead off that Clearwater series on Sunday and Monday. And he also, in that Sunday game that I talked about, started to pull the ball. All 3 of his hits, 2 were doubles, 1 was a single. All 3 came to the left side. 1 was a double to the gap in left center field. And I was talking to hitting coach John Tamargo Jr., and he said, like I've said before, guys are going to try to jam him in. He's so good at going the other way, advanced approach for his age. And he is starting to show the ability now to turn on some pitches. That's going to make him very dangerous.
You get those familiar players. You've had players the entire season. Meanwhile, you get players from Lansing, Shane Dawson, Anthony Alford, and then you add in, say, a Derek Blacksher or a Chris Smith. Those players picked up by the Blue Jays to help out with the depth. Let's talk about Derek Blacksher first. How did you enjoy that first outing for the DJs?
Well, it's a great story, Jesse. He was originally drafted by the Marlins when they were the Florida Marlins. That tells you how long ago it was, in 2007. And this was his first appearance in affiliated ball since then, so 8 years. And it was his first start ever in affiliated baseball. He appeared just in relief with the Marlins. Spent 8 years in independent ball, most recently for the Sugarland Skeeters, who that name may sound familiar to a lot of people because of Roger Clemens. Tracy McGrady had a little stint there, but of course the Roger Clemens comeback a couple of years ago, the attempt there. And Blacksher, he had a very rough first inning, 2 runs on 5 hits, but he stranded the bases loaded and kept the DJs in the game, ended up going 5 innings and striking out 6. So the next 4 innings were very good. He's got his feet underneath him, seems very excited to be here, already interacting well with his teammates. And it's just cool to see a guy not give up on his dream. 8 years of independent baseball, and I can say from just spending 1 year in independent baseball, that takes a lot of dedication and commitment, so good for him.
Well, you've got another independent leaguer going to the mound tonight. Brad Allen gets the ball.
Yeah, Brad Allen does, and Brad, non-drafted, came from the Arizona Diamondback system, and then was released by them, picked up by the Toronto Blue Jays, and it'll be Allen's first start since May. His first 5 appearances were starts. He then went on the disabled list for nearly 2 months. Since then, it's been all out of relief for Brad, and he's been very good out of relief. Out of the bullpen this year, a 2.73 ERA in his 12 appearances. So now he takes the ball again in the starting rotation, and I think he's very excited to make this start tonight.
All of these new faces, or new players getting those starting assignments because of the promotions and also because of trades. And speaking of one trade, or maybe a couple of trades in particular, what I'm looking at is Alberto Tirado and Jairo Laborde, started the year in Dunedin. Now they're coming back and they're taking on the DJs. You get to see Laborde as a starter for Lakeland tomorrow. How was it seeing Tirado out of the bullpen for Clearwater?
Very strange, because it was at our field. He was wearing the red and blue of Clearwater rather than the blue and white of the Blue Jays, and it was weird. We did play his entrance song for him. And he looked up to the PA booth and acknowledged the music operator. So that was a nice touch that our guys did for him. He looked very nervous at first, which I can understand. He's 20 years old, facing a lot of the guys that he grew up playing with since he was 16 in this organization. He walked 3 in that first inning, but then, as he's done so many times this year, he has the one rough inning, gets through it, and then his next 2 were absolutely lights out. Ended up throwing 3 shutout innings and striking out 4. So it was cool for him to definitely be successful against his former team. And like you said, Laborde tomorrow. And I talked to Chris Smith, who you mentioned as well, who was originally with Tampa this year, and he will face the Tampa Yankees following this series, beginning on Sunday through Tuesday in Tampa against some of his former teammates. And I talked to Chris earlier today, and he said he's very much looking forward to that. He's been dominant all year. Really got released by the Yankees just because they were going with a younger team in Tampa. He's just turned 27 years old, but he's been absolutely lights out with a fastball in the mid-90s, wipeout slider, and he's been nothing but terrific for us and in this league period this season.
Speaking with Marshall Kellner of the A-Advanced Dunedin Blue Jays, Griffin Murphy just rejoined you. Murphy was a standout with the Lansing Lugnuts before getting promoted up to Dunedin last year, and he came back off the disabled list. He's had 3 appearances, I believe. How's Murph rounding into form?
Yeah, his first 2 were 12 up, 12 down. A couple of shutout innings in each. His last one was a little bit rougher, failed to locate as well as he did in his first couple outings, but it's hopefully just a minor setback for him so far. 2 earned runs allowed in 6 innings, just 3 hits. He's looked good. I mean, he has a very funky delivery where he releases it, as you know, from his back left hip. It's got to be very difficult for left-handers to pick up. And the Blue Jays in their organization, some very good left-handed specialists. He could be one of them. Chad Girardo, we saw, started the year here, and he is absolutely lighting it up at New Hampshire right now, and I think he could be an option in the very near future for the Toronto Blue Jays at the big league level. And Griffin Murphy gives lefties similar problems.
I'm thinking about the relievers that you've seen this year, and you can't say that the Blue Jays are turning out clones in terms of pitchers. That Vince Horstman, your pitching coach, nobody. When you've got different guys, from Chad Girardo, who's basically a submariner from the left side, Will Browning, a submariner from the right side, Murph throwing it as funky as he does. Let's see, who else? Eric Sekula, a very different sort of pitcher. Anybody that I'm forgetting who's been unorthodox for you out of the bullpen?
I think you pretty much covered it. To have those 2 submariners to start the season was fantastic. And this bullpen has been the bright spot of the team really all year. They've had a few bumps in the road, but now we have Sekula and Browning. Sekula was the best closer in the league last year. Browning now leads the league with 18 saves this season and has been absolutely unhittable at this level, and in his last stint at Double-A New Hampshire as well. We have Chris Smith, Griffin Murphy, Brady Dragmeyer, who I've mentioned several times, has had a sensational second half with an ERA just a hair over 1. But as far as the uniqueness, I think you pretty much hit them all.
Around the Nest question of the week is about the opposition. Which players, and other teams in the league have really impressed you this year?
Well, I think anytime you're in the Florida State League, it's a pitcher's league, and you have to mention a pitcher. I'll mention a hitter as well, but starting with the pitcher, for me, it has to be Alex Reyes of the Palm Beach Cardinals, and now he's with Springfield, the Double-A affiliate of St. Louis. He sat at 100 miles an hour. Now, the DJs beat him. They got to him early for a couple of runs, and Jeremy Gabrowski outdueled him. But he was sitting at 100 miles an hour consistently throughout his 6 innings of work. He struck out 13 DJs in the game, and it was just a fantastic performance. I wrote next to his name in my scorebook that this guy's going to be a star in the big leagues, just so everybody knows that I called it before it actually happened. But no, I mean it was fun to watch, Jesse, and I think. Yeah, I mean, in the strikeout now, I just looked at his Double-A numbers today. Several more strikeouts than innings pitched, dominant numbers there. And he's only 20 years old. He actually had family in the Dominican Republic, went to high school in New Jersey, went to move to the Dominican to finish up high school there so he could be signed as a non-drafted free agent. And that's exactly what happened. He signed when he was 17, I believe. And he's going to be a good one. I don't think there's any question. The fastball, he has a wipeout 12-6 curveball, similar to what we saw from Jeff Hoffman when he was here before he went to Colorado in the Tulowitzki deal. So Alex Reyes would be my pitcher. And my hitter, it has to be a guy who's in the big leagues right now, Michael Conforto with the New York Mets. He was here with St. Lucie, spraying the ball to all fields. They wanted him to develop some more power. He did. And Conforto, he's going to be a key cog. I think he struggled a little bit in the big leagues so far. He's going to be a key cog in that Mets offense going forward. And if he can hit, look out, because those guys can absolutely pitch.
Back to Alex Reyes. I've never heard, maybe except for Aroldis Chapman, of a pitcher sitting at 100. Just that's where his pitches are averaging. And every now and then he gets it up 2-3 ticks above that with ease. That's crazy.
It is. And that's why it was so fun to watch. One guy I can think of who does it in the big leagues right now, Nathan Eovaldi for the New York Yankees. I was watching some of the Yankees-Twins game the other day. He threw, according to Michael Kay, their outstanding broadcaster, he threw, I think, over 20 pitches that were over 100 miles an hour, or that were 100 or over. Something like that. It was a mind-boggling number, and he was perfect through 5 and kind of lost it, but ended up getting the win. And what a reclamation project he's been. He led the entire league in hits allowed last year, and the Yankees took him in a trade. They said, we can work with 100, and sure enough, they have.
This is Marshall Kellner of the Dunedin Blue Jays. The DJs are on the road right now. They're taking on Lakeland tonight, then tomorrow. Then they take on Tampa on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Wednesday's an off day. And then, Marshall, you come on back home. And next Thursday is Tickets for the Price of Gas night, eh?
Yeah, one of my favorites. Hey, you even threw that in as well. Hopefully there'll be some Canadians down here. I saw some at our last homestand. Tickets for the Price of Gas night, always fun. We've had it a couple times this year. And the gas prices are pretty good right now nationwide, I think, and in Florida as well, so that should be a good one. And then in a few weeks, we have a college football kickoff night as well, where we are giving away tickets to several bowl games in the area, including the Outback Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, the St. Petersburg Bowl, a University of South Florida game. So that'll be a lot of fun. If anybody's thinking of making a trip down, definitely a chance to win some big-time tickets.
On Twitter, he's at Marshall Kellner, the Dunedin Blue Jays, DunedinBlueJays.com. Check out Marshall for the call of all of the action. Marshall, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse. Have a great weekend.
From A Advanced Dunedin, here we go on down to the Northwest League now. And I bring in Rob Day, the legend of the Northwest League. Rob, what were your baseball... What was that?
I said it's a perfect start. A great introduction.
Well, let's talk about the Vancouver Canadians. Let's talk about, we could talk about you all day long, but what was your baseball highlight of this past week for the season?
I think for me, just showing a little character. The Canadians are 4-1 in their past 5, and after everything they've been through, 16-22 in the first half of the season, losing a handful of guys up to Lansing. Just seeing some of the guys step up. Ryan Metzler is a guy who played just a handful of games for the first half of the season, and of course with the advancement of Lane Thomas up to Lansing, Metzi all of a sudden on a 12-game hitting streak right now. So seeing guys who kind of just sat there idly waiting for their chance to step up and take advantage of it. A couple of guys out of the bullpen, Turner Lee has been fantastic. That to me, as a broadcaster and as a guy that's ridden the buses with these guys all summer, that to me is the cool part, is seeing guys step up when that opportunity presents itself. Kind of the silver lining, if you will, Jesse.
What is a Ryan Metzler base hit? These base hits on this 12-game hitting streak, has there been a specific sort to those safeties?
Hard hits back up the middle. I would say in about half of those games, if you put an L screen out in front of the starting pitcher, he'd have bounced it right off the mesh. So he's seen the ball real well. He's squaring it up as well. And he's a second-year Vancouver Canadian. You got to remember he's a guy that last year was here when we made our championship run. So just a little calm, a little better defensively than Lane Thomas. And I just think what he's really done in the middle of the infield, just calming everything down, bringing a little stability, I would take that on its own. The fact that he's putting hits, and putting the total around 300 now for his batting average, that to me is good. By the way, that was a motorcycle going past.
It happens.
It most certainly does.
Let me ask you about one of my favorite players. Juan Kelly was with Vancouver. He moved up to Lansing. He is now back with the Canadians. I've noticed, he's already making an impact.
Well, Juan Kelly's first at-bat upon returning to Vancouver was a 3-run home run over the left field fence that really was something that we had looked from him. That was actually his first Northwest League home run of the year. So everybody had talked about Juan Kelly's power in the first stint in Vancouver. We didn't see it. But since returning to Vancouver, I don't know what you did with him, Jesse. Maybe a couple of stern conversations at the IHOP got him right, but he's been awesome since returning.
Here were his home runs to start things off in Lansing, because he was miserable in Lansing when he started, and he was swinging at everything. And then he got himself a great, the opportunity of a position player on the mound, and the position player threw him a meatball, and I think it was in the 15th inning, and he crushed it. And then the next time he took on that same team, he got himself a good hanging knuckler, which was doing nothing, right down the middle, and off that ball went. And suddenly that Juan Kelly smile was large, spreading from ear to ear, and we saw all of his energy back. And I just knew going back to Vancouver, he was going to embrace it, because, man, that guy can play, and there is joy surrounding him.
Well, that's my time on this show, Jesse. Thanks for doing that. But if there's anything else you need, let me know.
No. All right. You mentioned the relievers. When you started to talk about those highlights with Vancouver, and you said, here's what Ryan Metzler is doing, and then you said the bullpen has stepped up. Who are you referring to?
A couple of guys. Turner Lee, a left-hander, has been almost invincible in the month of August. And what's interesting is he came in last night and gave us 3 quality innings. And I don't know if I saw a ball go more than 10 feet in the air. Everything is just burned into the ground. And he also brings a really interesting demeanor to the mound. He's the guy that, you can bring him into starter frame. You could bring him in with the bases loaded and nobody out, and you wouldn't know. He's got a great poker face, a really cool demeanor about him. And I think that's part of the reason that the back end of the bullpen right now, he's starting to regain its swagger. It almost seems like everybody now understands what their role is. And again, that's a testament to the pitching coach, Jim Sykowski. This team has had a lot of movement, but at the same time, they've had a lot of guys that are just kind of hanging around in the first half of the season wondering, what am I doing? What is my role? What am I going to, be asked of? And I just think that now Jim Sykowski, 60 games into the season, has everybody understanding exactly what their role is. And I think that's why the Canadians are rolling as we speak.
This is not the first rodeo for Big Cy in Vancouver. What is his philosophy? What does he want out of his pitchers?
Well, outside of the fundamentals, which is, throw strikes and it's one pitch at a time and be competitive, I think the thing that Jim Sankowski does is he makes you believe. I mean, he's a very religious man by trade, but at the same time, he's a guy, not to use the religious reference, but I'm going to anyway, that can turn water into wine, as he's one of those guys that just understands that, hey, this is what I am, this is what I have to offer, and as long as you can throw strikes and be competitive, everything else will fall into place. And trust me, first half was rocky, 16-22. We had a couple of games where we'd walk 8, 9 guys, and you just sat there and you're like, man, this is going to be a real long year. But everything's starting to tighten up at the right time for us. And right now we're one game out with 15 games to go, and I wouldn't want to play us right now.
Isn't this the way with the Canadians? The Seas have magic. They had it those 3 consecutive years of winning the Northwest League title, last year all the way to the championship series. Has there been a year in this run where Vancouver's run away with it at all?
Oh, God, no. I will still go on the record to say that last year's team, the team that lost in the final, would have beaten any team from 11, 12, or 13. It was unbelievable that last year, of all of the 4, that was the one that we would lose with Frankie and Ramon Fields and Tim Castro and Ryan McBroom. I mean, we were absolutely loaded. But sometimes in a 3-game series, that's the peril of a 3-game series. Is one bad mistake, and the next thing you know, you're going home or you're on the road down 1-0, and it's real tough to win 2 in the other team's barn. So, I mean, I look at it like this. This Canadians team reminds me a lot of 2011, and the only thing missing is we don't have Kevin Pillar on the horizon to come and steal us a game in Eugene in the postseason. But I like our team, and I don't like it from really an ability perspective. I love them from a character perspective, and just blue collar. They'll grind you out. They will punch their mom in their face to win a game. Don't tell them I said it, but I guarantee they would. And even guys like John Harris, the first rounder, is really starting to come into form right now. John Harris the other night finally looked like a first rounder, and it took him a couple of games to get it under his belt, and he didn't get the win. He's still 0-4, but it was the first time that I've seen him dominate, and I finally, for the first time, got to look and realize, okay, that's why the Blue Jays took him with the 29th overall pick.
How soon into that outing did you start to say, oh, here we go?
Fourth batter, he had gotten behind on a hitter at 3-0, came back with 3 straight fastballs that were all overpowering. And I thought to myself as I watched him walk around the mound as all the infielders got a taste of the good life, I thought to myself, that's what's been missing, that kind of anger, like, man, enough of this. Because he's such a nice guy, and you'll eventually get to see him, and I'm sure in Dunedin and on his way up. But he's almost, I don't want to say timid, but just he's almost too nice. He's the kind of guy that you would want your daughter to date because you know that nothing's going to go wrong. But the only problem is in baseball, you don't want the guy that you want your daughter to date. You want the guy that you don't want your daughter to date. And I think John Harris finally put the leather jacket on for a couple of innings and looked the part.
Around the next question of the week, a player or players on other teams in the Northwest League who really impressed you.
From around the league, boy, I tell you what, Everett's got a bunch of them. The Seattle Mariners did some great job drafting. I think that also San Francisco, again, had a couple of guys that, we've gotten a good look at. And, I just look around this league, kind of a down year for the league as a whole, based on just name notoriety, guys that you think are standouts. But Alex Jackson, a middle infielder for the Everett Aqua Sox, for my money, is probably the guy. A guy that's hitting about 385 this year, a little bit of power, leads the Northwest League in stolen bases for, as of the last time I checked the stat sheet, and just a real good all-around player. So, do I see any can't-miss prospects within the Blue Jays this year? I don't, at least not with the Vancouver Canadians, but Seattle's got a ton of them. And if they don't win the second half pennant, that might be the best team I've ever seen play 76 regular season games and not get into the playoffs.
Rob Fay and the Vancouver Canadians, they're on the road right now, playing tonight at Spokane, tomorrow against Spokane, and then they return on home 5 games against Boise, Sunday through Thursday, before right back to the road and taking on Spokane right now. And yes, in the second half standings in the Northwest League North Division, there's Vancouver, 1 game back of the Everett Aqua Sox, tied with Tri-City. See if Vancouver can get back into the postseason, and then right back into the Northwest League Championship Series. On Twitter, at RobFayNation, for the great Rob Fay. Rob, thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate your time, and very quickly, I just want to say to all the firefighters in this region in Washington State battling a lot of forest fires, very ashy here today. I'd actually be surprised if we even played our game. I just want to wish them well, and if you want to make donations, you can do so at redcross.com. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Redcross.com. Rob, thank you. Well, Rob Fay with Vancouver. We've also heard from Marshall Kellner in Dunedin, as well as in AA, Bob Lipman, and in AAA, Ben Wagner. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Single-A Lansing Lugnuts. Over the course of Around the Nest this year, in order to talk about the Lansing Lugnuts, either I brought in David Fine, who serves as my broadcast assistant over the course of the spring and summer. David is now with the Tri-City Storm. He got hired away. He's now in the USHL. He's off in Kearney, Nebraska. And then at the start of the season, before David joined the show, Marshall Kellner quizzed me about all that was going on in Lansing. Let me see, a question coming in from Around the Nest, a comment earlier today. Clinton Holland seems to be pitching averagely, and his 22-45 walk-to-K ratio in 58 innings doesn't seem all that above average. Is there still more development to come? The answer is yes. The answer is there's a lot of development to come. Clinton Holland is young. He's 20 years of age. He's a big-bodied guy. He throws hard. He's got a power curve that they've been working on. And I do mean curveball, because I asked pitching coach Jeff Ware, what is this pitch that he's throwing? He's throwing it hard. And Jeff said, no, that's not a slider. He's working with the curve. It is hard. It is the same as we have heard with Connor Green. I wouldn't worry about Clinton Holland. He, just like Tom Robson, just like Colton Turner, back from Tommy John this year. Last year, Holland missed the entire year. Colton Turner missed the entire year. Tom Robson missed from mid-May onward. Next year will be really telling for both Clinton and Tom out of the starting rotation. Colton, the Lugnuts reliever, should move up to Dunedin. Tom Robson throws about 96, 97. Clinton throws hard. He's 2 years younger than Tom Robson. And there were some questions among scouts just to say, hey, who do you prefer between those two guys? They're trying to figure out what types of pitchers they're going to be. Holland is a competitor. He hasn't had his command, truly. He's still trying to figure things out, still trying to iron out his mechanics. When he gets things right, as he works, as he grows, as he matures, as his body gets older, and he works his way up through the system, he could open up some eyes. He's back from Tommy John. He's 100% in terms of health. But to that question, is there still more development to come? Yes. Yes, there's a lot of development to come for Clinton, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So the same thing for Tom Robson, who yesterday went to the mound, 5 innings, no walks, struck out 6. He gave up 6 hits and 1 run. And I tell you what, he can be much better than that. And he was working at 94 to 96 miles per hour. Watch out for Tom Robson in the future. Those are 2 pitchers just to keep an eye on. Lansing Lugnuts just put Starlene Soriel on the disabled list, and the man that they received in order to fill his spot, Sean Reed Foley, came back to Lansing, and he is only 19. Next year, the Dunedin Blue Jays starting rotation with likely Clinton Holland, Sean Reed Foley, Tom Robson, depending upon how things go at various points. You never know who might be asked to repeat Lansing, or maybe who might be pushed right into AA New Hampshire. Those are terrific arms and very high-ceiling guys at that. And there will be next year. Probably they'll be written up big time in terms of prospect handbooks and online and via evaluations. A lot will be expected of them. Right now, they're trying to set themselves up well to head off into the off-season and then hit up the instructional ball. It's a big year for stepping forward. For Sean Reed Foley, he had not pitched in the regular season above the Gulf Coast League. Last year at the end of the season, made his way to Vancouver for the playoffs. Tom Robson because of Tommy John, Clinton Holland because of Tommy John. 2015, simply a good year to get back on the mound, get back to full strength, get that fastball going, get to face live competition and challenge yourself. Robson last year made it to Single-A, struggled because of injury. Here he is back with Lansing. Clinton Holland had never pitched before at Single-A. Things are going to get tougher and tougher, and they've got the talent to conquer that. And then there's Sean Reed Foley, who throws just as hard. Those in the mid-90s, right up to 96, 97, same as Tom Robson. Now, the Lugnuts, as far as the starting lineup goes, there's Richard Arania batting second behind Chris Carlson. And I received a message earlier this week from Ryan Mueller. Ryan, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, I apologize. He was wondering about Carlson, who's played left field, center field, and right field for the Lugnuts. In the first half, batted 8th in the lineup, with Tim LeCastro batting 9th, and Anthony Alford leading off. Well, Alford got promoted. LeCastro was put into the leadoff spot. LeCastro was traded off to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and so here, in the leadoff spot, there's Chris Carlson inserted. He now leads the Midwest League as the toughest batter to strike out. He's been in the top 5 in on-base percentage this entire second half, right now ranking second in the NWL in reaching base. He is hitting home runs to boot. And Chris Carlson had not hit a career home run in the minor leagues until June. And now he's got 7 homers. He has 39 RBIs. He's up there in the league's top 10 in slugging percentage as well, and he's batting above 300. That's a pretty darn good thing in, again, a pitcher's league. You heard earlier in Around the Nest Marshall Kellner talking about the pitcher's league. That is the Florida State League. The Midwest League is the same thing. It favors pitchers in a lot of different ballparks. The pitching can get tough. There's Carlson batting above 300. There's Ryan McBroom with that batting average at 320. Doubled again yesterday. Double number 37 for the year. 76 runs batted in. He is now up to 10 homers because over the course of the last road trip, McBroom homered 3 times in the last 4 games of the trip. Apparently, you get him away from spacious Cooley Law School Stadium, and those doubles start going out. Yesterday, in the series finale between the Lugnuts and the Lake County Captains, he crushed a first-pitch fastball, and it went about 405 feet away, and Lake County center fielder Greg Allen made a leap to grab it at the wall. Otherwise, McBroom's offensive numbers get even better. These guys can hit. It is worth mentioning, too, that DJ Davis might have made the catch of the year for the Lansing Lugnuts yesterday. He was in deep left center. Lake County, affiliated with the Cleveland Indians, got a shortstop prospect named named Yu Chang Chang. I'll talk about Richard Arania in a second. And Yu Chang Chang thumped one, took it to very deep left center. DJ Davis is playing center field shaded toward right center. He gets on his horse. He gallops on over at top speed. He was flying across the grass. And then he laid out fully horizontally, and he made a spectacular catch. The sort of catch that only Davis could have made. Nobody else in the Midwest League. He still hits the ball out of sight. He still has that great speed and that kind of defense. He continues to give these flashes where you go, man, oh man, DJ Davis. Batting average 283. Had a 25-game on-base streak and over the course of the last road trip. If you're wondering about Richard Arania, he continues to vacuum up everything in sight, playing defense. Very soft hands at shortstop, switch hitter, and the bat is coming around again. Every now and then he can get a little bit swing happy. Every now and then he can get a little bit pull happy. Every now and then he can get a little bit home run happy. When he stays disciplined, and he's got a great head on his shoulders for staying disciplined. This is the sort of player who, he's 19 right now. As he gets older, he could turn himself into one heck of a hitter. And one final guy to tell you about with the Lugnuts, just returning. That's Danny Jansen, Lugnuts catcher. Had been the catcher for the Lugnuts up until May the 31st. Number 1 catcher. Michael De La Cruz, the number 2. And then Jansen was injured in Dayton, Ohio, reaching out for a pitch, and the Dayton Dragons batter, his bat hit Jansen's hand and wrist. And so he was sent to the disabled list. And he sat on that disabled list for all of June, all of July, activated, rehabbed in the Gulf Coast League, just rejoined the Lansing Lugnuts. He is 20 years old. And he turned 20 at the start of this year. He turned 20 on April 15th. 20 the entire year. He is young, drafted out of high school in Wisconsin, out of Appleton, Wisconsin. The man can receive pitchers. And his bat right now, he's batting .212. That average is going to go up. Jansen hits the ball, and he hits it hard. And he's got a short, compact swing. He does not strike out. He is another player to watch. All these guys are so far away. I was speaking with a Major League scout, and I asked him what he thought about the different futures for the Lansing Lugnuts, and he said, too early. Give them a year. Give me 2 years. Then I get to see what kind of Major League player they're going to be. They're so far away. But at the very least, they're a blast to watch right now. And we'll see, given 2016, 2017, 2018, how they figure into the Blue Jays' future. Well, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts. This has been Around the Nest. Thanks to Rob Fay in Vancouver, Ben Wagner in Buffalo, Bob Lipman in New Hampshire, and Marshall Kellner in Dunedin. Big thanks as well to Bluebird Banter. And you can find everything around the nest.mlblogs.com. I'll try to post everything on YouTube as soon as possible. Also available on iTunes and via SoundCloud. I post everything. If there's anything more I can do, you can find me on Twitter @JGoldstrass. It's our pleasure to bring you the latest news and notes from around the Blue Jays organization. Lugnuts are at home through Sunday. You can find us at LansingLugnuts.com. Lugnuts Single-A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays, and they are in the playoffs. Lugnuts won the first half Eastern Division title, September 9th and 10th. It'll be the Lugnuts and the Great Lakes Loons, the Dodgers affiliate, battling it out in the first round of the Midwest League playoffs. And we'll see if the Lugnuts can get back to the championship series for the first time since 2011. For today, though, and for Around the Nest for this week, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the baseball.